Channel open. Welcome back to Weekly Trek, a Star Trek news podcast presented by TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on January 10th, 2026, and is current through Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, so beware of spoilers. Alright, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
Weekly Trek is a regular news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in the Alex Kurtzman era of Star Trek with the 12th television show currently in production and 14 movies to enjoy, and merchandise continuing to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me and I'll help you sort the real facts from lots of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is returning guest and co-host of the First Flight podcast. It's Abby Sommer. Abby, welcome back to Weekly Trek.
Hi, Alex. It is so lovely to come and talk Trek with you in the beginning of this new year.
All right, Abby. Well, you know the drill. I want to know something's got you excited about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
All right. So we know as we record this, Academy is just looming on the horizon. And I for one, am absolutely pumped for this new show. And I am extra pumped after watching the red carpet live stream that came out this past week. And if you missed it, anyone out there, it's on YouTube. They kept it up this time. The last time they did the Strange New Worlds premiere, it disappeared quickly. This one's still there. And the amount of joy that radiated from everybody that is on that carpet, it was amazing. And I watched some of it live and some of it's just slightly after, but there were so many people from Academy there, but also from the bigger franchise. I mean, we had David Ajala and Michelle Hurd there. Kate Mulgrew was there. Like, we had a whole bunch of everybody was there, right? And first of all, everybody looked impeccable. And as someone who likes to look at fashion and costumes, not necessarily wear them myself, but look at them, there were some outfits there that made my jaw drop because they were gorgeous. They were amazing. Everybody looked impeccable. And it was just, you could tell everyone involved in this was excited. Everyone involved in this was happy. Everyone involved in this was looking towards the future in a way that I really need these days. And Celia Rose Gooding was emceeing the whole thing, and she is usually quite bubbly, but you could just tell she was having a great time. This is part of her family now. She's welcoming the new cast in as new family. And it was just a fun event. And it was nice to see something like that to start off my year. So I strongly recommend that anyone who didn't catch it yet, go find this. It's an hour you will be happy that you spent hanging out with the Trek elite, both in front of the camera and behind, because it's got me even more excited and more ready, and it feels like a balm to the soul to see that joy.
Yeah, it was a star-studded premiere, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely in terms of, you know, everybody who's on the show being there. They did it in New York because they're obviously still filming season 2 up in Toronto, and it's easier for them to get to New York than it is to get to Los Angeles. But I also saw very good turnout from Paramount Plus executives. Lots of people from older shows were there. Stephen Colbert was there. So yeah, it was. It seemed like it was a good time, and Celia Rose Gooding did a great job as the sort of, you know, red carpet MC.
Yeah, it was fun to watch her be professional, but also be personal with everybody. She was a really good blend of that. It made me think a lot of when Will Wheaton was doing the Ready Room, and you could tell that he really knew the people he was talking to and admired them, but also liked hanging out with them. So great flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let me tell you what I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week, and that's just that the 60th anniversary is finally here. Obviously, I'm very excited for Star Trek Starfleet Academy. You can listen to 35 minutes of me talking about how excited I am for Star Trek Starfleet Academy on the special episode I released just a couple of days ago with
It was great.
Thank you, with a no spoiler reaction to the show. So insert a special episode here in terms of what I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week. So I will just note that now that it is January, this is the first regular episode of the year. It is the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and there's a lot to look forward to, kicking off with season 1 of Star Trek Starfleet Academy next Thursday, and hopefully a lot more besides.
Well, you know what? Even if there aren't any surprises, which I I very much hope for later on down the line, just the things that we know are happening this year to celebrate the 60th. It's really nice. And, some people celebrate their birthday week, their birthday month, whatever. We're celebrating Star Trek's birthday year. Thank you very much, because it's just going to carry us through this year, in my opinion. And I love it.
Yeah. And I think there's been conversation on a previous episode around, like, I think it was maybe with Jamie or Gregor, we were trying to think about, like, we were sort of talking about whether the shows this year would kind of celebrate the 60th anniversary in any sort of a similar way as Deep Space Nine and Voyager did in 1996 for the 30th anniversary, where you had Trials and Tribulations for Deep Space Nine and Flashback for Voyager. And we were trying to think about, did the production timeline for Starfleet Academy and when it was written and when they thought it was going to come out, like, was it going to end up feeling like a celebration of the franchise for the 60th anniversary, especially because, you wouldn't necessarily fault it for not doing that. I mean, it is trying to do something a little different. It is trying to appeal to a new audience. But I think, like one thing I didn't really talk about too much in the no spoiler review episode is just at a really general high level. Like, I do think this is a show that very much honors the franchise that it comes from and all of the history of the franchise, even while being set 800 to 1,000 years in the future from the rest of the franchise that we know. It's not just Discovery references, right? Like, because, Discovery's contemporaneous. There's more to it than that. And it does sort of give me that, like, 60th anniversary celebratory feel to it, whether that was intentional or not.
Well, and that's a good way to put it. Whether it's intentional or not, take the celebration. And my hope is that there is something that the higher ups, and even, so with all the merger and everything, we've got some people who proclaim to love Star Trek in there. So hopefully they'll do something for Star Trek Day later on this year that does highlight something. While these shows can have the more general, maybe they'll do something specific, but I will take any of it. I mean, how many TV shows can talk about a 60-year legacy? There's only a few.
All right. Well, with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Well, as we were just discussing, this past week was the red carpet premiere for Star Trek Starfleet Academy, which took place in New York City as the cast is hard at work filming season 2 in Toronto, and so there were lots of stories coming out of the red carpet premiere. Alex Kurtzman, Star Trek franchise showrunner, spoke to a number of outlets about the show, but as collated by TrekMovie.com, a number of outlets also asked him about his future with the franchise. As we understand it, Secret Hideout's current contract to run the Star Trek franchise on television expires at the end of 2026. Speaking to The Ankler, Kurtzman said, quote, "I've had such a wonderful time making Trek. It's been more than I could ever have imagined and dreamed. All things being equal, if everybody wants to continue, terrific, and we'll see how it goes." And he said, when asked by Cinema Blend about whether he would be sticking around with the Star Trek franchise beyond 2026, quote, "Nothing I can share publicly, but I have reason to feel the future is bright." Kurtzman also revealed that while he has had early conversations with Paramount Skydance executives about what comes next for the Star Trek franchise, with season 2 of Star Trek Starfleet Academy wrapping filming and Strange New Worlds now finished, those being the 2 only active Star Trek productions on the TV side, that a detailed conversation about next steps would not happen until Starfleet Academy season 2's finale has finished filming. "We've talked about it, but it requires more drilling down when it comes to schedule and what it's all going to look like," Kurtzman said. "I've had individual meetings with each of them extensively," referring to the Paramount Plus executives, "and we're planning a big one for after we wrap Starfleet Season 2, where everyone will be together to talk about it. I have no connection to the feature side, so I don't really know what they're planning, but ideally, there'll be some conversation about making sure everyone's synchronized." But so far, Kurtzman's perception is that the reaction to Star Trek Starfleet Academy from Paramount Skydance executives has been positive. "I showed Chris Parnell, the new executive vice president of Paramount Plus Originals, the Starfleet Academy pilot," Kurtzman said, "and that was scary because I know how much he knows about Star Trek. 15 minutes in, I heard Chris yell, 'Yes.' From that point on, I was like, I'll take any note from this man. They've been nothing but encouraging and wanting to talk more. I haven't gotten any indication that they're not happy, so I am hopeful." Abby, what do you think the future holds for the Star Trek franchise?
That's a huge question, isn't it? But I am much more hopeful having seen and heard this. And I was never not hopeful, but this makes me feel like we're heading in a good direction. And I've never been one going, oh, Kurtzman is fired. No, like, and I kind of hope he stays on, and the people on the internet who call for his firing all the time and are going to just have their heads explode, because that would just vicariously make me have a chuckle. But I like what they have done so far. Is everything my very favorite? No, but it's never going to be. If everything's your very favorite, favorite doesn't mean anything, right? So I like what Kurtzman has done. I like that we have had multiple shows in different genres, in different, mediums. We've had animated and live action. They obviously talk to each other. I mean, just thinking about Prodigy and how much that interconnects shows you that they all talk to each other. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that he's looking forward to that as being part of it. Like, he doesn't know what's going on, but they're going to sit down and make sure it's all flowing. And I love that we have somebody who's higher than Kurtzman who also loves Trek. And when I heard that he yelled out like that, I was like, oh, phew. Like, you just take a deep breath and let it go and go, oh my goodness. Okay, somebody who gets it is up there, because there's a lot of fear with how CBS and Paramount have been acting as a corporation recently, and how that would impact what Star Trek is coming. But I feel a little better. Obviously things can change on a dime, but this made me feel more secure. And I think the way he's phrasing things and how he is carefully parsing out his words, whether he stays in the same role, a different role, a changed role, whatever it is, I feel like there will be more Star Trek on multiple types of screens, and that we are going to continue in the direction that is the flavor that we've had, with the inclusivity and the diversity and all of those things that we come to Star Trek for the future. And man, the world needs that these days, and I need that these days. So my worries were assuaged a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much sort of a, I guess we just have to wait and see situation. My guess is, based on those comments, negotiations have started but have not finished, and there's toing and froing and back and forth, but that the sort of general vibe of the negotiation between Paramount, Skydance, and Secret Hideout is a positive one. And it definitely doesn't sound like, based off of those comments, Alex Kurtzman's been told, all right, you're done, and
look for a new job.
Exactly. We're just playing out the tape at this point until this is over and your shows are off the air and done. I mean, they wouldn't do that even if that was the case, because they still want to make as much money as possible off of Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy. So, I mean, I guess the message you would be sending in this situation would be, everything seems positive, but like, the vibe doesn't feel that way. And the Starfleet Academy premiere vibe didn't feel that way. If you just sort of watch clips of the interviews and the energy of everybody talking, like, it feels very positive. It feels like people have a sense that this isn't a one and done. I mean, we know it's not a one and done. They're filming season 2 right now, but it's not a 2 and done. There's
momentum.
Yeah, right. There's momentum and optimism about the future of the show. And I think a Star Trek Starfleet Academy needs to go a full 4 seasons, because college is 4 years. And if season 1 is freshman year and season 2 is sophomore year, then we got to see junior and senior year as well, in order for the sort of story to play itself out to its natural conclusion. So I am really hoping that there is more for this show than just 20 episodes, that we do get at least to season 3 and 4 to spend sort of seeing the complete Starfleet Academy journey for this set of cadets.
Well, not everybody gets through college in 4 years, too. I mean,
true.
It could be somebody's going for a specialty. Right?
Exactly.
Bring on that 5th season.
And you have new cadets join as freshmen when these cadets go on to be sophomores. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing saying that it needs to be 4 seasons, or Starfleet Academy could go by the British higher education model and everybody gets through in 3 years rather than 4 years. That could be the post-burn shift of Chancellor Arche from Starfleet Academy as it was in the 24th century when it was a 4-year model. So yeah, like, I mean, it's interesting to hear Kurtzman talk about it. I think this is the first time he's sort of publicly been asked about his future with the franchise in a while. Also sounds like any announcements for anything new coming are not imminent. I mean, if they're not even going to sit down and talk about it as Kurtzman and the Paramount executives until after the Starfleet Academy season 2 finale has been filmed. We're not really sure how far they are into filming of season 2, but I mean, let's say that's at least February, March. They're not going to then rush to announce something. It's going to be a while before we learn about anything. So that makes me think it's probably San Diego Comic-Con at the earliest before we hear anything about what
that would
comes
be
next.
a place to do it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you'd hear about a season 3 pickup for Starfleet Academy before then if they decide the show warrants that. But I would say definitely in terms of like new shows, I wouldn't look to First Contact Day or anything like that. I think it would be, my guess is, given how all of this takes time, if the meeting's not happened yet, then it's at least the summer before we start to get any word of it.
Well, but you know what? The one answer that Kurtzman gave that made me feel extra hopeful was probably his shortest, because I don't remember who asked him, but somebody asked him, do you think that Academy will be the last Trek show you launch? And he just said, no.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, that is the answer I wanted. The most simple, succinct, perfect answer. So, I mean, that could be it's his opinion, obviously, but that was an answer that it was very simple, sweet, short, and exactly what I wanted to hear.
And also not the answer you give if your sense
uncertain
is that you're wrong about that, right? Because then you end up with real egg in your face, because then it's like, oh, well, you weren't even smart enough to see that you're...
the writing on the wall.
Right, that the writing was on the wall. I mean, he would look not great if, after having given not quite a definitive answer, but after having given such a strident answer as that, that it, wouldn't come together. But who knows? I mean, we're not in that room, and we don't know really the dynamics that currently exist between Kurtzman and the new Paramount Skydance executive team.
Fingers and toes crossed. And honestly, I am glad that we will take the time to do things right. It seems like, yes, the waiting is hard, and we got very spoiled by having so many Star Trek shows on at once. But if it means they're going to take the time to do it right and get things worked out to be a longer term plan, we can be patient.
Well, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 5 has wrapped filming, and even though we won't see the series' finale until 2027, we do now have a couple of pieces of information about how the show will wrap, as Paramount Skydance have announced the casting of both Leonard McCoy and Hikaru Sulu. McCoy will be played by genre actor Thomas Jane, who is most famous for playing the Punisher in the 2000s Punisher movies, and Detective Josephus Miller in The Expanse. Hikaru Sulu will be played by Kai Murakami, for whom this will be his first television acting credit, but he does have significant credits in the theatre. According to the trades that reported the news, the characters are not expected to appear in Strange New Worlds until the series finale. Abby, how are you feeling about the casting of Dr. McCoy and Hikaru Sulu?
Well, I'm really excited. I really liked Thomas Jane in The Expanse. I have not seen The Punisher, but I really like him as an actor from what I've seen. And I know I've heard people say, oh, he's too old to play McCoy at that point. But, when you cast Paul Wesley as a slightly older than he should be looking Kirk, I think that fits really perfectly. And honestly, I never can judge anybody's age anyway, so whatever. You're older than me, younger than me, around the same age as me. It's all good. And I'm excited knowing that I have enjoyed previous work to see what he does with McCoy. And those are big shoes to fill. And we've already, recast McCoy once and done it, in my opinion, quite well with Keith Urban. So I'm excited to see that hopefully happen again. And when I saw Kai Murakami's face, I went, oh my God, that does look like Sulu. Like, it was a really good match. And I don't know how the casting did it, but I have not seen any of his stage work, but I am excited for that. And I think I'm glad that they announced that we should not expect them until the end, because there's been so much speculation as the original TOS cast starts to kind of creep into what we see on screen in Strange New Worlds. People keep hoping for who's next, who's it going to be? Okay, so now, look, you know who the actors are going to be. You know you've got some time. Let's focus on the characters we have now. And I think that was a smart move, because you're not always looking for, the surprise, this character is going to pop up here or here. You know they're coming. You know it's settled. It's good to go. Let's focus on the time we have with the Strange New Worlds cast here. And I'm excited to see how they do everything with all of the CMO positions. I mean, we have to do something with Mbenga, and he's definitely got some threads they could pull on to get his story to where we know it ends up in TOS. And I also wonder about how we're going to see, or if we're going to see, Dr. Piper, who was in Where No Man Has Gone Before, because there's some story in there that has some legs. So I'm hoping for all of that. And I'm just excited. I think Strange New Worlds has a really interesting and unique connective piece that I am going to trust they're going to do well, because so far I've been happy with how they have done it. So I'm expecting that to continue.
Yeah, DeForest Kelley and William Shatner were about 10 years apart in age, and I was just looking it up. Paul Wesley and Thomas Jane are 13 years apart in age. So it is a very comparable age differential between the two sets of actors. I mean, sort of setting aside how old the characters are supposed to be, because that's
Right.
always, whatever. So Thomas Jane will look sort of the same amount older than Paul Wesley, as DeForest Kelley looked the same amount older as William Shatner did in the original series, which feels right, because this is a visual medium, and it's not what you know about how old they are, it's about how they look. And I think this will mean that the looks are the same, even if, yes, technically both actors are older than the characters by a number of years.
Well, and that doesn't bother me. Age is such a personal thing anyway. So let's let that one go, people out there in the world and the internet. And let's wait and judge if that's impactful when we see it. I'm excited. I choose to be excited.
Yeah, and the Where No Man Has Gone Before stuff's interesting. I mean, they've got to deal with M'Benga not being the chief medical officer anymore. I mean, there's definitely an episode of story in that,
At least one episode.
Yeah, and that feels like something that they started the show with the intention of doing. I mean, that's an intentional choice to pick M'Benga, a character from the original series, to be the chief medical officer of the Enterprise under Pike, and is naturally going to create questions that they almost certainly, decided they were going to have the story about, which is, okay, well then what changes? Why is he just a doctor on the Enterprise in TOS and not the CMO anymore? And, maybe his war crimes have something to do with it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely the sort of direction the character has been going in terms of what they've been choosing to explore behind him. But yeah, then the question about, well, how do you deal with Piper, if at all?
And maybe they're hoping for year one and like saving that for there. And I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah. I mean, the show could just sidestep it from the perspective of, I mean, they've sidestepped things like, what does the Enterprise look like and what does the bridge look like? Do you just say, we'll just go from M'Benga to McCoy, and then, he was off the ship on an extended leave and Piper was the fill-in for that one episode, and you can headcanon it away however you want to. So yeah, I think there is this really interesting question around, as the show reaches its conclusion, how much are they looking to broad brush line things up with the original series, squint and turn your head slightly to the side and it mostly fits together, or how much are they like, no, like if the original series starts in this very specific way, then Strange New Worlds needs to end in this very specific way as well. I mean, I've never thought that would extend to the visual continuity, though I continue to believe that the way they should end the show is the last scene should just switch over to, it should be Paul Wesley, Ethan Peck, and Thomas Jane on the TOS sets, the way they looked in 1966 and not on the Strange New Worlds bridge. Like, to just sort of say, it's the same. Yes, they look different visually, but in the story they're the same thing, and so we're sort of showing that to you so you can just not worry about it anymore.
Take a breath and relax, internet.
Right. Rather than them go in the direction of doing we've had to refit the ship and make
the
some
Discovery
of the technology,
A's, or it goes backwards.
We've made the technology less sophisticated for X, Y, and Z reason, that kind of thing. So, but hey, who knows? It's exciting to speculate about, but we won't get the answer until 27. And yeah, the Sulu actor looks just like George Takei. It's
amazing,
rather uncanny.
Yes, I would almost like to see photos of George Takei at that same age and put them next to each other, because I have a feeling it's even more striking. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, a year from now, when he's dressed up as Sulu in the Starfleet uniform,
There we go.
That'll be the true test.
There we go.
Well, fans are excited for Star Trek Starfleet Academy for a number of reasons, but for longtime Star Trek Voyager and Prodigy fans, that includes Robert Picardo returning to play the role of the Doctor again in live action. But recently, in an interview with SFX magazine about the new show, Picardo revealed he had had second thoughts about accepting the offer of returning to play the Doctor 800 years in the future. Well, you always do have second thoughts because Voyager is a well-loved iteration of Star Trek, Picardo said. There's a question of how the fans will accept me as a character who, in theory, never changes, even though the actor playing their beloved hologram is 30 years older, a little heavier, a little shorter. Picardo also went on to talk about how his approach to the character has changed in the new Starfleet Academy setting, saying, quote, "That's 800 years of digital memory, where the memory of a beloved colleague from 793 years ago is as fresh and clear as someone you saw yesterday. Only science fiction can give an actor a challenge like that to try and wrap your mind around. For a human actor who is certainly as concerned with the issues of mortality as anyone else my age, it's a funny leap of faith to try and put those personal concerns aside and imagine what this must be like to have generations of organic colleagues grow old and die around you. It's got to influence your interest in developing interpersonal relationships in the future." Abby, how are you feeling about Robert Picardo reprising his role of the Doctor in Star Trek Starfleet Academy?
Well, I was excited when he came back in Prodigy season 2, and I'm also excited that he is back now. The Doctor is a character that has so much potential and such a cool sci-fi story. I mean, this is not the only sci-fi big show or genre or franchise out there to tackle someone who outlives everyone else and what that means. But I'm really excited to see his take on it, because obviously he's done the thinking, he's done the pausing, he's done the reflection. He's really made this part of who this character is now. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that he said, even to the point where he was hesitant and had second thoughts, because he wants to do it well. And that's something that people who want to do the work well and honor the thought process and the writing and the characterization and the continuity usually do, because if you care that deeply, it comes out in performance or in the art that you're making. So I'm really looking forward to his experience. I'm looking forward to the connections that he can make backwards, impacting what we're seeing in Academy now. And it's interesting because it's another parallel. We were just talking about the Discovery A and Zora. All that previous knowledge that Zora had from Forever. I mean, the Doctor is pretty much an encyclopedia of a lot of history right now. So that has some really interesting story possibilities, especially considering, being sentient, going back like that can't always be easy. So I am excited to see what Picardo does with it. I am excited for some good Dr. Burns and sarcasm and eye rolls and face pulls, because that just brings the Doctor's character to that next level. I loved him as a mentor in Prodigy. I am excited to see him as a mentor now. And I like that he's calling himself, the Yoda of Starfleet Academy, which is so fun that he's pulling from the Star Wars franchise to pull it here. But I know someone in my life personally who is very old and very wise, and I respect deeply, who calls himself a Yoda of right now. And it's such a shorthand for something that we all understand, going, oh, wise and empathetic and caring. And if that's what we're going to see, that's the type of character I would hope that the Doctor would be that far in the future. And I'm excited for him as a hologram who's been on forever to be pairing up with Sam, who we know is a hologram who may look 17 but is very young, 4 months. I'm excited to see that dynamic and to see how each of those characters impacts each other. There's so much potential here for really good stuff. So bring it on, please.
Yeah, it's a really interesting performance that he gives. It has both the sort of familiar notes of the Doctor of Voyager and Prodigy, but then also something new. He's sort of a solid supporting character in the first 6 episodes of season 1, is in most of the episodes, has stuff to do in each of them, but is not in the first half of season 1 a main focus. So you've still only got kind of hints about, so I assume there's kind of more coming about the Doctor, and this piece that Picardo talks about in the interview about that, what's it like to have watched all the people that you developed a relationship with die and be 800 years in the future and having now gone through that, you know, 8
Knowing
to
all
10
your
times.
companions are temporary.
Right,
Like
exactly.
always.
Yeah. And especially too, I mean, you know, the Doctor would have survived the events of the burn, you know, and I'm sure a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people he knew then died as well. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like there is something really interesting to that. And I'm excited for them to explore it further. I mean, it's definitely like it was ever so slightly jarring the first time he shows up because it's like, oh, it's the Doctor in this sort of like, you know, Discovery-like environment in this Kurtzman era Star Trek show. It just sort of like immediately feels a bit different, but Picardo very quickly kind of puts you at ease with the performance, and even though he's is doing something a little bit different, it's like, no, this is the Doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is unquestionably the Doctor, and then it's just really nice to kind of see him, you know, sort of pop up and serve in one of the faculty roles on the show, and the sort of like, you know, mentorship position, or not in this case, that kind of ascribes to those adult characters.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting too that you talk about how he hasn't had a focus episode in the first part. Well, he doesn't need to. We've got his backstory for years already. So if they save his big stuff for later in the season so that we can get backstory and fall in love with the other characters and see how his story is impactful there, I'm totally fine with that. I think that's a good thing. And I think he's, you know, you think about the franchise back in the Berman era, we would usually have somebody from a previous show at the beginning of the next show, right? Like as a handoff or a
Yeah.
connector piece. So he's the connector piece all the way back. Whereas we've got, you know, Reno and Vance and some of the people from Discovery as the connector to the modern Trek. That's tradition all the way back to McCoy walking in TNG. So I like it. And I am very excited to see that connection firm up some more.
Well, and lastly this week, the Nacelle Company have had quite a Christmas and New Year after putting a stop to shipping on Wave 1 of their new line of Star Trek action figures because of quality control issues in the first shipments of figures from the factory in China. Just one day after I published my last regular episode talking about how Wave 1 shipping had started and how excited I was to receive the first wave, the Nacelle Company CEO Brian Volk-Weiss announced that many of the figures Nacelle had received for Wave 1 did not live up to their standards, and new figures were being manufactured and shipped to the US to replace them. A few figures did ship out, and collectors who received them reported issues with the paint job. Nacelle is working with the factory now to improve the painting, and just yesterday released images of newly completed figures that appear much better than the ones that got shipped before the decision was made to halt sending out any more. Nacelle has apologized for the delay and expects the new shipment of figures to be shipped in late February. Anyone who received a figure that was already shipped will be automatically shipped a replacement. Abby, have you ordered any of the Nacelle Company action figures?
Yup. It was an easy way to spend my money. And I am so excited. And honestly, I have so many old figures of all the different types, right? Mostly the Playmates ones. And they live in my basement in my Star Trek Wine Advent calendar boxes now because my girls play with them and have adventures with them and everything. So I cannot wait to get them. And I'm sorry, my action figures are going to be played with because that's what they're there for. They're there to get some action, right? Oh, that sounded terrible. I didn't mean that. They're here to be played with, right? And I can't wait to get some of those in there and see how their stories go. And just to have, I mean, a Tuvix action figure. It's amazing. And I am not sad that they are waiting to ship these right. That is exactly what you want a company to do. If they had sent out and been okay with substandard products, we would all be raging right now because we have waited how many years for some of these. You can wait a couple more months to get it right and to not have cross-eyed figures when they show up. Because I saw some of the bad paint jobs with the
Yeah.
cross eyes, and I'm like,
Yep.
ooh, that's rough, right? And honestly, those people who got the bad ones, if you save them, they're probably, you know, hopefully 60 years from now going to be, remember when we sent out those few ones? They'll be collector's items, the cross-eyed archer. Or
Oh,
whatever.
there's someone on eBay who already thinks it is a collector's item. They listed a Wayun for like $300.
Jeez. Okay. Well, maybe not yet. Not yet. But I am excited. And you know what? I really like how honest, upfront, and open that Brian has been about all this. And I love hearing you talk to him. Like the two of you talking about the figures. And he's done the circuit with everywhere, but he is someone I trust to do it right. And he came in, he owned it, he apologized, he's been open, he's been as current with information as he can be. What else could you expect? Things happen. That's life. That's China. That's production. That's everything. And I will wait patiently and happily to get my Wave 1 and my Wave 2 that I have pre-ordered, because it's worth it. And these little pieces of joy, literal little pieces of joy, will be worth it when they come. And thank you to the Nacelle company for being reputable and being the type of company that should be repping Star Trek products, because they want to do it right, and they're going to honor the people who are spending their money and not give them something substandard. So I appreciate that, as hard as the wait may be.
Yeah, the level of communication has been really appreciated. I mean, this is obviously, like, I'm sure a very embarrassing situation for them, right? Like,
and disappointing. Like, right. You can tell he's disappointed.
Yeah. Like, this big thing about we're going to ship them before the end of the year, guaranteed. Yeah. It's absolutely going to happen. And then you think you've made it, and then you didn't.
Yeah.
But the amount of communication about it has been really reassuring. And yes. It sounds like, I think in one of the communications, Brian said like less than 1% of people had canceled their orders as a consequence of the challenges that they had faced. And, when you hear, oh, we just got this shipment in of figures we've been working on for a year and they're no good, so we've got to go back and remake them all over again. Like, I think a lot of people's fear in that regard was, okay, well, if you put them up for pre-order in February and you ship them in December, does that now mean if in December you've decided you've got to make them all over again, it's going to be October of next year before they arrive? And no, they've said it's going to be late February, and the big reason for that is because actually manufacturing and painting the figures is not what takes all that time. What takes all that time is prototyping and then developing the tools necessary to make them in large numbers, and then getting sign-off from Paramount about this is good enough to produce, and getting the packaging right. Like, all of that is what takes most of that year. And then actually manufacturing them and shipping them is, as it turns out, about a 2-month process. Because if they said in December, we're going to remanufacture them and we're going to be shipping them out to people who ordered them in late February, that's about a 2-month process for them to do that. So late February rather than late December, that's, a little frustrating, but also it's like, one, I understand. Two, I also saw some of the pictures of the ones that got shipped out, and cross-eyed Wayoons and mirror Captain Archer, who looks like he's wearing
bubbly.
Yeah, or also like wearing a ton of makeup. And
yeah, he went heavy on the eyeliner and the lipstick.
Yeah, and others that have look like they have like really bad cancer and stuff like that. Like
they got the face.
Yeah, so the pictures that they have sent out in the last couple of days of like, okay, this is what the new ones are looking like that are coming off the line. It's like, okay, that's what I was expecting it to look like. So yeah, like it sucks. And I almost didn't even want to do this story because it's like, I mean, it's not fun to just kind of be like, oh yeah, let's talk about someone screwing up and what that means. But one, there is a ton of excitement about these action figures, and so and there was a lot of like, these will go out before the end of 2025, so I think it's appropriate to update folks on that, on the delay, but also just because at the end of the last episode I was like, oh, and they're shipping now, so it's all good, and that's not ended up being true. So 10 out of 10 for the Nacelle company's communication around this, 10 out of 10 for what the figures look like in the pictures that I have seen, and hopefully 10 out of 10 once they finally show up in late February.
And you know what? I'm just thinking about this now as Academy will be getting close to wrapping up, right? So as they start to ship out, then I will be finishing one thing and having some joy arrive in my mailbox, right?
Exactly. All right. Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's offer our opinions on the Star Trek franchise.
Your opinion has been noted. Anything further?
So as we transition from the news section to the opinion section, each week my guests and I will give you a Star Trek opinion, wish, or theory we're nurturing that week about any aspect of the Star Trek franchise we want to opine on. So Abby, let's hear it. What's your big Star Trek opinion for this week?
All right. So my opinion is going to be a hope as well. I really am looking for hope these days. And I am hoping that all of the people who are out there talking about Starfleet Academy when they have seen 0 seconds of it, keep an open mind. And I know you've talked about this a little bit before too, but you know what? Keep your mind open, look at it, watch it. And if it's not for you, great. That's fine. You have literally almost 1,000 episodes of other things that do work for you. And if you only like the original series, there's still a whole bunch of those to go back to. Don't come in and gloom somebody else's high. Like, be kind, respect other people's opinions. And if you don't like something, you don't have to go on a rant. You don't have to go out of your way to tell everybody you don't. You just step back. That's okay. I don't like the horror genre. I don't read horror books, watch horror movies, any of that, but I don't go out of my way to tell people, oh, I think that horror is terrible. I hate it. It's the worst thing. No, like, that's not what we do. And we as Star Trek fans are, most of us, I assume, in this franchise looking for that better future, for that hope, for that brightness, for that way to model yourself as better than what you are now, always growing and always looking. So model that by being kind and being open-minded and letting people find joy where they find it. Somebody else liking Starfleet Academy, if you don't, isn't going to hurt you. So let's just all be a community. This is an anniversary year. Let's celebrate what we love. And if you don't like it, just be quiet, please.
Yeah, I definitely echo give it a chance. I talked about that on the little episode that I did.
Yep.
The show for me did take a couple of episodes to kind of bed in.
But don't they all?
But yes, every show does. So like,
would you have watched all of TNG after Encounter at Farpoint if that was it? Like, I mean, come on now.
Right. So, give it a chance and let the show kind of find itself a little bit. And I'm not saying that means you have to watch 20 episodes, right? But I would say give it 4 or 5. And if by the end of 5 your sense is this is not for me, then it's not going to be for you. And that's okay. But if you get to the end of 1 or 2 and you're like, I don't know about this, like, give it a couple more episodes, I would say, just to kind of to make sure, because I think in 3, 4, and 5 the show really does kind of find itself. And actually, my opinion this week sort of backs into that quite nicely, because I do think that like whoever puts together some of the promotional stuff for Star Trek does not do the shows that they're promoting a huge service.
Gee. That's traditional Star Trek too, though.
Yeah, I mean, the previous big example would be, remember the trailer for Discovery Season 4 that showed updated makeup for a Ferengi, and then there was probably a week of discourse about this new Ferengi in Star Trek Discovery Season 4. But then when you actually watched the season, the Ferengi officer was in it for about as long as they appeared in the trailer, which was maybe half a second.
Yeah, 4 seconds total.
Yeah, right. And so, the Starfleet Academy kind of promotion, there have been 2 big things that like people have, sort of debated or criticized or been kind of bumped by, which like in reality in the show either don't appear at all or barely appear. And so like Paul Giamatti whistling the Star Trek theme tune in the Starfleet Academy trailer, not actually in the show. It's not in the show. It's just not in the show. It's just in the trailer. So like everybody who watched it and was like, oh my God, this is, breaking the fourth wall in this really awful way, and it totally takes me out of it, and like I hate that. Don't worry, it's not in the show. It's just in the trailer. It's not in the show. As I speculated may be the case when the trailer came out, and ended up being correct about. And like, this is not saying that people who watched that and had a reaction to it were wrong. Your reaction was your reaction to what that was. That is somewhat a criticism of the show for making that choice for the promotion. It's a cool thing to do in a trailer. It probably was like Giamatti's like 12th take, and they just went, why don't you do one, just do the Star Trek theme just for fun, and then the trailer people
we'll use it in the blooper reel.
Exactly. And the trailer people got that footage and were like, oh, I mean, what a great way to kind of end off the trailer. But then it kicks off this big firestorm about like, what's appropriate for Star Trek, etc., etc. So that's the big one. And then the other one is the sort of the wall of names of previous famous Starfleet officers, which has been analyzed to death
Oh
Because
man,
there
yes.
were a lot of shots of it in the promotional materials. It's barely in the show. I mean, it's obviously it's part of the set. And, when you do establishing shots, you might catch a name here or there, but it's not like there's a sequence in the show where they slow motion pan across the names so you can read every one of them. I don't
You mean
really
the cadets aren't walking up to it to pick their next history research project person?
Right. In the first 6 episodes, there's not really even like a scene that takes place right by the wall of names. And so it's another thing where it's like this show has become, in the minds of fans, a show in which this wall of names is like a big thing, and in reality it's barely in the show. And it's a show in which Paul Giamatti whistles the Star Trek theme, and he doesn't. It just doesn't happen in the show. So I think there's two takeaways from this. Number one, the people putting together the trailers and the promotional materials, especially the sort of early stuff. Star Trek fans take this stuff very seriously. And so you kind of have to know that when you're putting it together. And
or at least run it past someone who would flag that stuff for you.
What seems like a funny or fun moment, Paul Giamatti whistling the Star Trek theme, is maybe not going to get taken the way you want it to by the fans who watch it. But I do think there is also then something for the fans, which is like trailers are designed to evoke a set of feelings and interest and excitement, but they are not the show. The show is the show. And the only way to know whether it's a show that vibes with you or not is by actually watching the show.
Watching it.
Being the final product and assessing the final product based on it being a final product, rather than these sort of trailers that get put together that obviously do a big service. I love trailers. I'm a big trailer fan.
I'll freeze frame a trailer.
Yeah, they do a big service for generating excitement for the show, but they also create these awkward moments where you get this discourse about something in a trailer and what that means for the show that ends up not being a thing. Again, Paul Giamatti not whistling the Star Trek theme at Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I feel fairly confident I can share that one spoiler with you as the audience.
Well, thank you. And now I kind of want him to show up on whatever the next red carpet premiere is, or on every con stage he goes on from now on, and whistle that theme. I think that would just be funny. Every time he comes on, they just have him whistling his way onto the stage.
Or, of course, there's always the possibility that it was him whistling in the show, and then the trailer came out and it landed with such a wet thud, they swapped it out.
And they took it out.
Else.
Yeah, that's possible too. But, that's good, because it would mean they were paying attention to what we're thinking. And maybe they just wanted buzz. And they got it. They got buzz. They got interaction. They got mentions out in the world and on social media. Not maybe the way they wanted, but people are talking about it.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion, theory, or wish about Star Trek that you'd like to share? Email them to me at weeklytrek@trekcore.com, and I might feature your thoughts in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Abby Sommer, for joining me today. Abby, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
Well, if you want to find me personally, I hang out mostly on Blue Sky, but I'm around other places too, with the exception of X, at Abby M. Sommer. That's SOMMER, not like the season. And if you want to hear me talk a lot about Trek, mostly Enterprise, but some bonus fun in there too, my co-host Chris and I have a podcast called First Flight. Find us on all the socials, all the places at First Flight Pod. We are currently right now in the first third of season 4 of Enterprise reviews. So we're into those big arcs and fun stuff. So come give a listen if you love Enterprise, and there's extra fun stuff every month in there too. So find us and give us a listen.
And you can find this show on X at Weekly Trek, and me at Alexander T. Perry on X, and at Alex T. Perry on Blue Sky and everywhere else. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And for all your Star Trek news needs, in addition to our extensive media archives of all things Star Trek, I hope you will keep your senses locked to TrekCore.com. Well, thank you, Abby. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper. Weekly Trek is a production of TrekCore.com and owned by Trapezoid Media, LLC.